Welcome to the Prime Health Podcast with your host, Dr. Derek Barron. Dr. Barron with your host, Dr. Derek Barron. Dr. Barron interviews doctors, wellness experts, and healthcare leaders who are revolutionizing how we approach health and longevity. The Prime Health Podcast explores breakthrough science, personal and patient stories, and practical insights that are shaping the future of health and wellness. So sit back, listen in, and prepare to transform how you think about your path towards Prime Health with Dr. Barron and his special guest.
Welcome back to the Prime Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Derek Barron, and I'm here to bring you cutting-edge insights and practical strategies from leading healthcare experts from your journey to prime health in life and in business. Now, my guest today is Adina Mintz, who is a functional medicine physician assistant who spent 17 years in conventional medicine, treating over 50,000 patients, until she realized the problem really wasn't her patients, it was the system. Now she's helping women heal through functional medicine by asking why instead of just what. Now, before we jump in and hear from Adina herself, just a quick message from our sponsor, Grow Solutions, where we work with amazing health and wellness professionals to allow them to reclaim their evenings and weekends while building the practice they've always envisioned. Now, Grow Solutions helps eliminate a lot of the biggest headaches and bottlenecks in your practice, whether it's generating new clients or patients for your practice, whether it's communication breakdowns that can take place in there, maybe some operational chaos that people have. We have proven systems and frameworks that help. And then, yes, we do help you implement some AI systems and agents because it's coming whether we want it or not. Grow Solutions is not an agency or vendor. We are your growth partner. So if you've ever said this or thought this, I'm too busy to grow, too slow to scale, or too overwhelmed to fix it, we are your growth solution. Just drop the word grow below or feel free to reach out to me on any platform. Now let's dive into the reason you are here today, and that's our amazing guest, Adina. And Adina, I want to say welcome to the Prime Health Podcast. So please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. So like you mentioned, I've been in medicine for over 17 years. And, what I started to notice is that, yes, we have a pill for every ill, but we were not getting to the root cause of why patients were having the symptoms that they were having. So we have lots of Band-Aid solutions. Conventional medicine is great with Band-Aid solutions. They're also great for acute situations like lacerations and, the need for surgery and things like that. I'm very, very grateful that we have that. I'm very grateful for antibiotics. And I also think that we overuse these modalities very, very often. We don't give informed consent to our patients about what the global or long-term effects will be on their bodies. And I think that we could do a better job by being a little bit more generalist instead of super specialist like our health system has come to be. So, I joke about how you can find a pinky specialist in the orthopedist sphere. And in functional medicine, we're really looking at all the systems, and it doesn't mean that I don't use specialists. Of course, if someone has a very serious problem, I'm going to send them to a specialist. But what I find is that my patients, before they come to me, are seeing the rheumatologist, the neurologist, the cardiologist, the orthopedist for their various ills, and no one is putting the whole picture together. So that's what I found was lacking in conventional medicine, and that's when I started looking into functional medicine approximately 10 years ago.
Wow. Okay. So you are a physician assistant. You were essentially practicing in a hospital setting, a clinic setting, as you kind of realized these changes taking place?
Most of my training is in urgent care. So I'm seeing a lot of, it's mostly cold and coughs, like nothing too fancy really. Okay. But even that does lend itself to a lot of education about how you don't need a Z-Pak for a cold that started 5 minutes ago, what the long-term effects could be, what is a microbiome. Did you know that obesity is associated with chronic antibiotic use? That's usually one that gets people listening. Everything else that I'm interested in. I have had other experiences. I did work with cardiology. I did work with internal medicine. But with urgent care, at least I am able to do those acute things like suture up a patient if they need it, or set a bone or something like that. So I didn't feel like I was going too much against my ethos.
Okay. Love it. I appreciate that. So I want to step back a little bit before that. Was there a moment in time in your life, a situation that occurred that said, you know what, I think I want to choose a career in medicine?
Well, that happened when I was very young, and it wasn't really anything too inspiring. I just wanted something that would give me a good life-work balance that would be interesting to me. So I started shadowing, which you have to do before PA school, when I was 16.
Wow. That's an early on into that. So good for you and good for your patients to have started so early on in that. Now, when we talk about functional medicine, it's a very broad category. Whether you ask Dr. Google or Dr. ChatGPT, there can be a lot of misconceptions that are on about that. Would you mind kind of explaining what your definition of functional medicine would be and how you approach that with your patients?
Yeah, that's a great question because, like you said, there's so many definitions and there's so many different kinds of practitioners. And so functional medicine, at the end of the day, you'll probably get some kind of Google or ChatGPT definition that you're trying to get to the root cause of disease. And the question is, well, how are we getting there? So some practitioners will not test at all. They'll just focus on lifestyle, which includes, sleep, excluding toxins, nutrition, stress, which are all absolutely cornerstones of functional medicine. And then there's what I do, which is combining all those above things that we just mentioned with very detailed functional laboratory testing, so that if I'm giving you a supplement, it's because I can see evidence on your blood test or urine test or saliva test, whatever test I'm using, that you are actually deficient in that thing, so that we're not just throwing supplements on a patient, giving them 30 supplements to take a day. And supplements can be just as dangerous as medications when taken indiscriminately.
Yeah. Understood. I like that. Unfortunately, we are in a medication first society. And I think people like yourself that are going into functional medicine, it's a betterment for it. You've said already, like, we're not trying to say, please don't take medicine. Let's give you a better, a healthier approach to it for yourself, which overall is going to help the family and those people around them too.
Absolutely. And I use medications in my practice all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So although I use them as minimally as possible, I definitely do use medications. I try to use lifestyle whenever possible. If that's not available, then we go to like lifestyle nutrition. If you can't get it from a nutrient, then we get it from a supplement. If you can't get it from a whole food supplement, then you get it from a synthetically made supplement. And then I would go to herbals, a little bit of homeopathics. I'm not too familiar with that. But I do use a lot of herbals. And then in certain situations, I absolutely do use antibiotics. Someone has an acute Lyme or tick-borne infection, I will probably recommend that they use medications at the outset in conjunction with herbals and other nutrients to support that healing.
Yeah. And Adina, your practice is mainly focused on women. So when they come to you, they're often probably been to a lot of places. They don't know where else to go or what else to do. What are kind of the patterns that you see in these patients that are coming into you in your practice?
So that is a great question. Without fail, every single one of my patients will come to me and say that they are having X, Y, and Z symptoms. They are miserable and all their labs were normal. They already saw their primary care. They already saw their specialists, and there's nothing wrong with them according to the labs. And so the doctors are not doing anything for them. And which is such a pity because, if someone's feeling a certain way, that shouldn't just be rejected and saying, well, your labs are normal, so obviously you're fine. But that is the experience of, maybe not 100% of patients, but about 98%. It's pretty ubiquitous. And so it's not that the doctors are lying. It's not that they're bad doctors. A lot of them are excellent doctors, top in their field. But if they don't have the tools that I have and that functional medicine has to offer, the labs will look normal because you're looking at the serum, which is outside the cell. You're not looking in the cell. You're not looking at the saliva, which is going to be active for certain kinds of hormones. You're only looking at, again, the serum. You're the whole mycotoxin, which is the toxin that are created by molds, for your audience's sake, is completely quackery that doesn't even exist, according to a lot of conventional medicine doctors. We can deal with all the toxins that are in the food. It's no big deal. So there's a lot of medical gaslighting that goes on. And it seems as though, especially with women, because we are expected to have painful periods, horrible acne, go through menopause and just suffer because that's just how things are. And that's just part of life, as opposed to, no, there's actually a lot that we can do about that. And, your life could be so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. As a mother yourself, you know that sometimes you put family first, and not always yourself. So a lot of women do suffer from that. They are often looked over, for certain perspectives, which is truly unfortunate. With a lot of the guests that I've had the conversation with, it's coming up more and more and more, which of course is I would like to say myself as a kind, caring gentleman, I probably don't pay attention to that as much. So I do apologize. I'll put myself on the sword for that. But it's interesting. Now, for the women that come in from a functional medicine approach, how do you treat some of the functional medicine conditions like hormonal imbalances or fatigue or mood changes differently in your practice versus if they went to a general practitioner associated with a clinic off of a hospital?
So, great question. As far as hormonal health, if we're talking about someone who's having painful periods, invariably the solution is oral contraceptives or some kind of hormonal contraception, I should say. And although that comes with a lot of inherent risks, including cancer, by the way, as I'm sure you know,
Yeah.
the informed consent is almost never given, which is such a pity. And so we're not talking about the risk of cancer that can happen. We're not talking about the loss of libido. We're not talking about the weight gain. We're not talking about the hormonal, the psychological changes that actually make you less attracted to a more masculine partner. There's a lot of really, really interesting research that's only just coming to light right now. And oftentimes it just doesn't work for them, aside from the side effects, even if the side effects are not an issue, because it's not an issue for everyone. Of course, not everybody gets side effects, but they don't necessarily get better. I have a patient who had really, really painful periods, and she went on 5 different kinds of oral they were all oral contraceptives. None of them worked for her. She went to the top specialist in the area. I know her very well. She's very respectable. She's a very respectable OBGYN, and nothing was working for her. And she was still at home for 2 to 3 days of every cycle, doubled over in pain, just, taking painkillers all day. So, and that's even with the oral contraceptives. And then she didn't like the side effects that she was experiencing. So the way I approached it was doing hormonal testing on her. I was able to see that her progesterone was very low, which is hard to get from a regular blood test, especially because you're typically taking a snapshot in time. You get one blood test, maybe they'll do it on day 3, maybe they'll do it on day 18 of a normal 30-day cycle, approximately, let's say. But what I do differently is a cycle map. So I'm looking at 11 different data points over the course of their cycle, and you're able to see what is the graph of their estrogen, progesterone, and their testosterone. And that was able to show us that actually, even though she is a very thin girl, which normally not associated with syndromes like PCOS, she did not have acne, also associated with PCOS. She did not have cysts on her ovaries, which she knew because she was going through egg extraction at the time. She still had a PCOS picture because her testosterone was too high. She did have hair growth in a masculine pattern, but it wasn't obvious because she had it removed. And dealing with that, giving her hormonal testosterone blockers, giving her bioidentical progesterone just in the second half of the cycle called the luteal phase. She has had pain-free periods, light periods. She's able to go to work. She's not taking painkillers anymore. And it's just something that is so common. I see all the time in my practice. My biggest, I don't know, say regret, but it's just such a pity that people don't know that things could be so much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is unfortunate. We live by our history, and in many ways that's not a good thing. But from a health condition, we're like, well, I remember what it was like. My mother said it was that way. My brother,
Exactly.
said he had it this way. So if they had familial, if you wish, it's just going to continue, and it doesn't have to be that way. And the truth is, no offense, big medicine, they don't want it to change. They don't want people to think differently. They don't want to know providers like yourself exist, because trust is breaking down in the healthcare arena. And we need more people like yourself that's there, because in order to get people better, they have to believe there's an option versus here's a pill, go and take it, you're going to get better. So with that question, Adina, how Functional medicine is difficult to sometimes explain to patients if they're not sure that I've been taking the medical route all along the way. But how would you say you build trust in your patients to say, hey, this is a path we're going to go on and I'm with you together?
So there are a few things I do with my patients. I tell them that they know my background as a conventional PA. So it's not like I don't have any training in conventional medicine. We talk about the conventional route. We talk about the risks and the benefits. We talk about the functional route. We talk about the risks and the benefits. I also have a very different relationship with my patients than in the conventional world, where there's this, I call it like the front desk fortress, where you can never get in touch with your doctor. And so they're able to message me directly. So if they're having any kind of symptom, any kind of side effect from something that I give them, which is definitely possible and does happen frequently, then we can make an adjustment right away within a day, not in a month when I'm going to have the follow-up with them. And I'm able to show them studies. These are, just real clinical data if they're that type of patient. Some patients, their eyes just glaze over when you start talking about statistics and studies, which is fine. Mm-hmm. And some patients want to know everything. They want to know the research, and I'm very happy to share it with them because I have it. And to me, I am practicing absolutely evidence-based medicine. I just have, like I said before, more tools. I have more knowledge because I did specialized training.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say is your ideal patient that we all have our favorite kinds, and I don't just mean the personality of the patient, but it's easy, for me, when I was in practice, I love knee patients. I love low back patients. What would you say is your ideal patient that walks in your door?
So my favorite patient are the hormone related patients for sure. I love hormones. I find them fascinating. They are so cool. Everything has to be in a balance. It's just really, really fun for me. But back to the personality of the patient. There is also a lot that I expect of them. I tell them that 90% of the healing is going to come from you. So if you are not willing to put in the time, the effort, the money, functional medicine is very expensive just because of the testing by itself, then it's just not worth working with me. And I do a 15-minute consult before I meet with any patient if they want it, to go through what they could expect, what the trajectory is. Some patients are really, really ignorant when it comes to nutrition. And I'll tell them, well, maybe work with a nutritionist even before we start so that you could even just get onto the playing field of what we're even talking about. If you're committed to sleeping only 3 hours a night, it's just not worth working with me in that vast majority of cases. So I try to downsell and select out, actually, because I want to have really great patient outcomes. And I want to work with patients who are dedicated to their health. So I definitely make exceptions in all arenas, but that I would say is my favorite patient, who's motivated, who's willing to make changes, and if they have like some kind of hormone related issue, which unfortunately most women do. Of course, I know I'm not ignoring their gut issues and their fatigue and all the other things that are very much tied in with hormones very often. Yeah.
I love it. So what would you say, well, where do you get most of your patients? Do they walk into a clinic? Do you do telemedicine? How does your practice work?
It's about 50-50 in person and online.
Okay.
So some patients just prefer the in-person experience, which I understand. I definitely think that you get maybe 5% more seeing somebody in person versus online. But I think you can get most of what we need online because there's very little to no physical exam involved. If I need to, ask them to like show me your tongue, they could just show me their tongue on the computer. It's not that serious, generally speaking.
Understood. Adina, from your business perspective, what are you focusing on in your business itself right now?
So from a business perspective, I'm trying to build up the practice enough so that I need a second practitioner. That would be my ideal.
Okay.
Because I think that this is just such an area that is so necessary for women, and I have limited availability. And I would love for this just to be more widespread and for more women to be served and helped.
Yeah, I love it. So does that mean that there are current challenges that your practice has?
Definitely have. Yeah, I definitely have challenges. A lot of challenges, actually. I'm a new business owner. I never owned a business before. So I opened my doors about 2 years ago, and, from advertising to administrative assistant to, just getting the right kind of office space, all these different factors are definitely a huge part of what I'm dealing with.
Yeah. We have growing pains as humans, but our business have growing pains as well, that they're not always fun, but hopefully this too shall pass is the way to look at it.
And you learn from everyone. So it's all good. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. So I know you kind of shared a story of a patient previously, but is there a story that you can share with us that you would like us to? I think it was the hormone one that you spoke about a little bit. Is there another type of story that you could share that was a success story for your patient?
Yeah, I have another young girl. She's only 20. When she came in, her MSQ score was about 170, which I think is the max. It was like every symptom she had. For those not familiar, MSQ is a list of symptoms that a person has, and they rate them from 1 to 4. And then there's an aggregate number at the end. And this is just a almost objective way to say, how symptomatic are you when you came in? And then we'll redo this every visit or every other visit, depending on what the situation is, and see how that number comes down. So it took a long time, probably about a year. But her score now is about 15.
Oh my God.
And she's just a whole new person. So she was very complex, very complicated. She came in originally just with GI symptoms. And she had SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth for your listeners, which is complex to treat, has a lot of relapsing symptoms. And then she had IBS, most likely because of the SIBO. It seems about 40% of IBS is due to SIBO. And then she also had just horrible fatigue. She had joint pains. She had headaches. She had dizziness. She had these POTS-like syndrome. She would pass out. She was a nursing student, and she would just be talking to patients and just land up on the floor. It was pretty distressing. So, yeah. And she really struggled with nutrition. So even though I knew she wasn't eating well, I still took her on. So there's one of my exceptions. But she definitely got much better at eating real food, not Dunkin' Donuts 3 times a day. And we discovered that she had tick-borne disease, and in addition to the SIBO, she had multiple nutrient deficiencies. This is someone who had seen every specialist on the books at the best medical institutions, and taking a very, very holistic approach. Thank God we were able to get her down. So she's just a person who's able to just live her daily life without being constantly in pain, constantly nauseous, constantly dizzy. It just made such a big difference to her, and she was able just to see, functional medicine is pretty cool.
Yeah. So Adina, do you think that's making her change a little bit where her nursing is going to, develop? Do you think she's looking at functional medicine as a perspective as well?
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, okay, good.
I have a good number of patients who are in the medical field, and after, thank God we have some success, I say, well, do you want to come into functional medicine?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Like that was an amazing story. The one previously was amazing, but I'm sure there are difficult cases. There are easy cases. There's no easy case, but there's some that you get better results from. So how do you explain expectations to a patient?
So what I tell patients is that if you've had a certain disease for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, this is not going to be resolved in the span of a week or two. This can take a very long time. So even though this girl is only 20, that we were just talking about, she had been dealing with all of this for about 8 years. So it was a long time. And there was no, in functional medicine, we talk about, was there a triggering event? Was there something that, like a death in the family or a car accident, something like that? There was no clear trigger for her symptoms. Probably it was a tick bite, if I had to guess. But sometimes it's just not so clear. And so then we just look at all the systems. We take a very systematic approach, and we're looking to see, we're looking to see the best way forward that makes the most sense for the patient. And the patient is always a huge part of the treatment plan. It's like, is this realistic for you to do? Is it not? Okay, it's not realistic. Let's go on to plan B. That's not realistic. Let's go on to plan C.
Okay. Is it possible with her, like, again, it was 8 years that this was going on. this is probably maybe a difficult question to ask and or analyze, but do you think that she was healthy, when she was 12, and it could have been the tick bite then, and then that just suppressed her immune system, and then all of the other stuff came along? Is there a way to analyze what came, the chicken or the egg, in her situation?
Right. As you say, it's very hard to analyze, and probably it was multifactorial. I don't like to say that there's any one root cause for anything.
Yeah.
She probably had a lot of toxins build up. She definitely had the poor eating habits and sleeping habits already built into the system. What kind of toxins was she exposed to? All these different things come into play. So I don't think it was just the tick bite, because I think that there are probably a lot more tick bites that we know of, and people are just fine with it if everything else is doing great.
Okay.
About 50% of people don't even know they ever had a tick bite. They just never saw it. So I'm sure that there are a lot of people. I live in a tick belt in New Jersey, and the whole East Coast, or the northern East Coast at least, is just covered in ticks. Yeah. So how come some people are able to, sustain a tick bite or live in a moldy environment and not get any symptoms? I think it has to do with everything else going on. Yeah. And back to your question of, how long is it going to take? This is part of what I talk about in my 15-minute consult before I even meet the patient, which is, you've had this, and I'm going to set this expectation. Anything hormonal, we're not going to see any changes for 3 to 6 months minimum, because that's once we figure out what the problem is. So that may be, 9 months or a year. It just depends on the situation. And so I try to give patients a realistic set of expectations.
Yeah. Well, I can tell from in the conversation we had that honesty and integrity are big factors with you when you deal with your clients and your patients. So I want to ask a question about being a differentiator. What do you believe separates you from any other functional medicine practitioners in your community or across the globe, you could say?
Well, across the globe, I can't give you, because I don't know everyone across the globe.
Understood.
Thankfully, in my area, I'm the only one within about a 30-mile radius in this one community who practices functional medicine, who also has a medical background. So there are functional nutritionists who are excellent, and I refer to them. I have a functional nutritionist on my team. And there are the energy healers, and there are the kinesiologists. And so there are people who are doing alternative medicine, but there's really nobody who I know of, like me, who has kind of both sides of the spectrum.
Interesting.
Of conventional and alternative, if you want to call it alternative. I really just call it super conventional.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good descriptor for sure. So as we kind of wrap up here, just a few more questions. When, of course, I'll share all of your links in the description, but if somebody wants to learn more about you and or your practice, where would you like to direct them?
Probably the best place is my website, njfunctionalmed.com, which, like you said, the link will be there. It just has a whole bunch of Q&As. It has all the pricing. I'm very transparent about all that. I like to be transparent about as much as possible. It just has information about pretty much most things that people will be concerned about. And then, of course, there's how to get in touch with me. Everything's on the website. Okay,
perfect. And again, I'll share that for you. So 2 last questions. If you could give one piece of advice, and whether from conventional or super conventional, and how you work on that, your super healthcare that you provide, what's one piece of advice that would lead people from this show in a positive fashion for their life?
I think that patients should not accept the status quo of their symptoms and just accept it as this is just how life is. You said such an important point before, where we take history very seriously. My mother had really bad menopausal symptoms, so of course I'm going to have that. My mother had really bad pregnancy, so of course I'm going to have that, which I did have horrible pregnancies until this current one. Yeah. And, when you're able to first have that paradigm shift, that things don't have to be this way, things could be better. You could just feel better in your body. You could be a better person. You could be a better spouse. You could be a better mother, better worker. And I think that creates a shift. And then you have to find someone who's able to take care of you. I think that patients do have a little bit more power than they did, because there's so much skepticism with the conventional world. So I think that if you come into your doctor with a set of labs you might want to get, a set of you have a theory about your symptoms. I think patients know themselves very well, and I take them very seriously. And I think that doctors are starting to go in that route, even in the conventional world, which is nice to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question. You're on the Prime Health podcast. What is your definition of Prime Health?
So I think that Prime Health has to do with quality of life as opposed to longevity. I know there's a lot of talk about longevity. Everyone wants to live until they're 150 years old. I don't want to live till I'm 150 years old. That sounds like a nightmare. I want to live a healthy life, and I want my patients to live healthy lives out of the nursing home, not getting the hip fractures, not accepting that osteoporosis is just part of menopause. And, that goes back to HRT, which we didn't even talk about today, but such a huge topic, which is hormone replacement therapy for your listeners. And I think that Prime Health has to do with living your healthiest life with the best vitality.
Thank you. I love, it's selfish. It's Prime Health Podcast. I love hearing that. Everybody's answer is so unique. The last two questions are always so unique. There's never been a repetition one at all. So I appreciate that. So
good.
Adina, thank you for bringing your perspective. It's very interesting, the line of succession in your practice, how you've gone from the conventional process to now going into functional medicine, which you're getting your patients and clients are getting the best benefit from healthcare from you. So I can truly appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Now, I always say this because I think it's so important. If you're listening or watching and there's just one person that you think could benefit from what Adina is doing or what she said, please share this with them. It's important that you do. We would love to say we would love to help 25,000 people at once, but we'll take one at a time as we go through that. So for myself, subscribe to the Prime Health Podcast. We'd love to have more listeners and more viewers along the road. So as I wrap up here, until next time, remember that true wellness is a journey we are all on together. Now, whether you're taking charge of your own health or guiding others in theirs, every step forward matters. So I always say, please do stay committed to your Prime Health journey. And again, Adina, thank you very much for being a guest on the Prime Health Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.